Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Cameron. I was just added to the local peace economy team recently to work on creating a container for us to think about culture. And this will be reflected on the website and in our gatherings as well. So that's why we wanted to start with a culture gathering today. But so a little bit about me. I am living in Los Angeles, and I studied creative writing, so I'm a writer, and now I don't work in writing. My friends and I, we host festivals in Joshua Tree. They're music and workshop festivals. I guess it's similar to like Burning Man if Burning Man was for 100 people instead of however many people are at Burning Man. um, and those festivals, I wanted to share about that experience because I think it will be really relevant to our discussion today. But maybe um, if there was anyone new who wanted to introduce themselves before I get into that, now would be a really great time. I feel like this is meant to be like a community gathering. Many of you already know this, but it would be so nice to see your faces if you feel comfortable.
And while we're waiting for a few people to raise their hands, I'm Marie Goodwin, and I took over for Emily as the new local peace economy coordinator. And I'm working pretty closely with Jody and with Cameron now, and we're bringing another person on soon, and we'll introduce her soon. And I'm really interested in how um, communities come together to recreate systems, economic systems, but all kinds of systems actually, that are outside of sort of the mainstream, and are trying to build new tools and new ways of being together. It's been a passion of mine for 20 plus years, and I'm really grateful for this role and for the connections that I am making in this line of work. So, welcome everybody. So glad that you're here. Um, let's see. Is it anybody raised their hands? I can't see any raised hands. Are there no new folks who would like to share and say hello on screen? Greg has raised his hand. So, Greg, I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, yes. I'm trying to turn on my video, but it says the host has disabled turning on video or something like that.
Have? Well, let me try and fix that. Why don't you talk and then I will try and fix that issue.
That was all I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that. So try it. Greg, would you be willing to be the guinea pig and see if you can turn your video on now? Great. So everyone who wants to turn their video on, turn their video on. That's very instructive. I didn't know that that was turned off, so I apologize. All right. Well, if Elaine, would you like to speak? And I will unmute you.
So what are we doing?
We are, if you are a new person to this meeting, please just introduce yourself, say where you're from,
Oh, okay.
and what brings you here, what are you interested in, and just a little introduction so people can,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. My name is Elaine B. Holtz, and I host a radio show called Women's Spaces here in Sonoma County. I actually put the website on the chat. And I'm here because, first of all, I heard Jody talk about the peace economy, and it was just absolutely wonderful. She did a presentation in Sonoma County at the Peace and Justice Center, and it really inspired me that women were starting to talk about that, really start talking about a peace economy. I mean, I'm an older woman, so we've been involved for a long time. And then I interviewed Jody, And I want to hear more about it because I had an idea for my show that maybe we can do one piece every month, to talk about it, to bring more and more information to more and more people in the community. And I'm grateful to be here. And thank you so much for doing this. And thank you for allowing me to introduce myself.
Great. Well, welcome. It's great that you met and interviewed Jody. She's traveling. She would be here, but she's traveling right now. So, yeah, and I think a lot of people have been really inspired by Jody. I met Jody in 2014 at a gathering in Rome, and I I was just amazed by her and what the community that she was, participating in was doing. And I just, I was really amazed by it. So she really stuck in my memory. So go ahead. Oh, you're muted again. Hold on. You're going to need to unmute yourself again.
As far as the Code Pink goes, I had the honor, the real honor, because it was such a new thing to me. I met Medea Benjamin when she first ran for senator here for the United States. So I have a long history with the Code Pink, and I'm glad that you're still active.
All right. So Cameron, would you like to ground us with your song and lead us
Yeah,
through? Yeah.
definitely. In local peace economy gathering tradition, I wanted to start with grounding. And this is something that I do at all of my intentional gatherings. So I read that when you're in a room with other people and you guys take 3 synchronized breaths, that's all it takes for your heartbeats to synchronize. So I wanted everyone to take 3 breaths with me. I'll guide you. And if you want, you can close your eyes. And then after that, I will play a song that will kickstart our conversation. So close your eyes, and then we'll breathe in and out. In and out. And in and out. Okay, let me share my screen and play the song.
The sun in the morning comes over the hill and kisses the tall grass beside me. We are so young at heart and living is an art to be good at. good at. Oh, God, we love you. How can we say we love you? We love you. How can these bodies say?
Welcome back, everybody. First thing I wanted to say is I put the lyrics in the chat. It didn't come out as stanzas, but those are the lyrics. And I wanted to ask if anything like in the song spoke to them, or if anybody had any thoughts about hearing that song. And you can raise your hand. Yeah, Nita.
Hey everybody. I really like the idea and the imagery of the new day after a night, because it kind of does feel like a dark night right now, and just the remembrance that there's a new day, and that we have a chance to renew and rise back was really nice.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, it feels like a hopeful song, but also kind of a sorrowful song. That's kind of why I picked it. Did anybody else have any thoughts? I'll just share a few of like why I chose this song to share. There are a few lines in the song that really speak to me and I think speak to culture. The first line is that living is an art to be good at. That's repeated a few times throughout the song. And obviously, we're going to go into like what culture is, but art is definitely a part of culture. And so to view your life as an art means you're starting to understand that your entire life is something that you can practice and improve upon, make beautiful, use as expression, and all of those things are part of culture. And then the other part of the song is at the end. He's like imploring to God, and not all of us here worship a God. I don't, but the way I interpret this is he's saying, how can we say that we love our lives and our community and the world? At the end, he says, how can we say we love you? And I think that is another really beautiful expression or way that culture can be expressed, is through this deep question of like, how do we express our gratitude for being here and for all of the abundance in our lives? There's countless cultures throughout history that have created containers for that. That's what prayer can be, offerings, altars, all that type of stuff is to answer or at least provide a space for people to ask the question, how can we say we love you? Enough about that. Now we're going to move into what culture is. And we're creating this meeting not to tell you what it is. And I know that's not exactly the answer that many people want to hear, but I'm 24. I have not been here as long as many people in this meeting. There's no answer that I can give you or that anyone on the local peace economy team, no matter the age, can give you about what culture is. But we can guide you in thinking about how to recognize culture in your area, or how to recognize culture that may be missing or is not as expressive. And then we can also share with you examples of spaces where culture is celebrated and centered, and human beings know how to relate to each other because they have a connection to their land, their ancestry, or just traditions and practices that have existed for so long. Yeah, I'm wondering, Marie, before we move into questions, if you wanted to say anything about like introducing culture and this topic.
Sure. So part of the reason that I'm really interested in this topic is because I have done doctoral work as an archaeologist. I studied Bronze Age Aegean archaeoastronomy at the PhD level. And while that sounds like maybe that isn't related, I did a whole graduate seminar on the topic of what is culture, because what archaeologists are essentially trying to do is to identify cultures in the past through archaeological material, and also to see and to try and prove whether there was cultural intermixing or a lack thereof through trade or through contact in the ancient world. And if you read at all about ancient history or archaeology, you see that that is a big topic, and it continues to be a big topic no matter where you are in the world and where you study. And essentially, what the graduate course that I took on defining culture was that we really can't define culture. Culture is performed from within a person and within a group, and cultures can overlap in their various the indicators. So an indicator might be dress, or an indicator might be food, or an indicator might be language, or writing, or pottery styles, or a whole, any number of different things. But like a Venn diagram, they might overlap in some places and not overlap in others. They might overlap with other nearby cultures or even far away cultures with similar motifs, and that there is no one way to pin down culture. It's an elusive term, and it's too broad of a term to actually have any real definitive meaning that we could prove scientifically. But yet, when we talk about culture, we all know what culture is. Like we know it, we know it when we see it, right? And we know that a particular art style, for instance, might be culture, or the way somebody dresses might be cultural. But these do not define culture. And so Jody and Cameron and I were talking about this. And it was just kind of throw a monkey wrench into the meeting, in that it's impossible to define one type of culture or one aspect of culture and point to it and say, if you get that right, then you've got a good culture. Um, and and so that's my sort of academic, overly in my head discussion about what culture is not. And I hope that it gives you some food for thought.
Yeah, does anyone have any thoughts about, or perhaps any cultures or are any recognition of their own? Okay, Moji, you saved me.
Hi, boy, I thought that this was going to be more about art and singing, but then the the definition of culture is what I was looking for, in 1980, late 1980s and 90s, because I was in my doctoral program in humanistic and slash cultural psychology. and my dissertation, I was looking for the definition of culture, and and there is this thing that says confirm your speaking language. Is this something I should be paying
It
attention?
said no. It said I was speaking Japanese earlier. I think just ignore it.
Okay.
Okay.
So I cancel it. And so I looked at anthropology, social psychology, I mean, every discipline, and I found definition of culture was essentially culture, according to those definitions, a bunch of characteristics of lifestyles, if you will, that that work together and make a somewhat common identity. I was looking, being a phenomenologically trained psychologist, I was looking for what it is or how does it come to be. And that's how I eventually stumbled upon the the definition of lived culture. And I can tell you, if you have time, how that came about. But lived culture is the imprint. Later, I taught this course at the university level. Lived culture uh, is the imprint in continued experience of shared experiences. And
Thank you.
then it becomes unconscious almost
Mm.
as soon as it is formed. Therefore, we carry a whole bunches of cultures, lived cultures, of which we become by definition unconscious. And then conflicts. I developed a project called Project on Culture and Conflict at the University of Arizona, and Noam Chomsky, which I have the honor of having
Mm.
been endorsed by, he encouraged me to not give up on this because culture is so unobvious. It
Yeah,
is
thank you,
hidden.
Moji. I want to hear from Nita because we're going to have to
Okay.
go to break room soon. Thank you
It
so
is
much for
in,
sharing.
let me just finish the sentence. Culture is so hidden in plain sight.
Yeah. I like how you said that was unconscious as well. That's really a key thing. Nita, what did you have to share?
Sure. And please stop me if this is like not the right time to say something like this. But I'm really new here and learning so much from all of you guys. Uh, at last meeting, when they said the next meeting is going to be about culture, I thought a lot about it, and I actually wondered. I'm like, why are we talking about culture? Um, I was born here in the U.S. My family's from Pakistan, and I always saw culture as a bad thing.
Mm.
It always had a negative connotation for me because it was like something that we had that didn't quite fit in.
Mm.
Um, so so I actually never really thought about culture until that last meeting. And as I was trying to relate it to why we would talk about that in a peace economy, um, I really realized that a lot of the cultural undertones of how we live here, at least in the US, um, capitalism is not just what we do, it's a culture. It's very deeply ingrained into how you think, what you expect, what your values are. Um, so I'm really interested to learn with all of you guys how we can change, adapt, implement those cultural changes, because it's really hard to change what you do if you don't start with the root of, how you're thinking.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was like a really key insight that I think we wanted to be brought up at some point in this meeting. So thank you for bringing that up. I think, yeah, culture is everywhere. That capitalism has a culture. Um, but there are also so many cultures that exist that have different ways of being. And I'm looking at the time and I'm seeing we need to go into breakouts because we want to give you guys time to like really dig into all of this. And last meeting and in the email, we asked you all to bring a piece of art. So, or a piece of art or a piece of culture. So if you did that, the breakout session will be where you can share that piece with the people you'll be talking with. If you didn't bring anything, no worries. You can also just talk about this general question of what is culture, but not in a theoretical way. We want you grounded in something real in your life. So that would be sharing an art piece that you like, or sharing, if you didn't bring an art piece, sharing a cultural practice or tradition that you participate in, that you think that you really like and admire. And or if you don't, yeah, sorry, Marie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we're going to give 15 minutes for this, and you'll be in breakout rooms of 2 and 3. So you should have enough time to get into it. And then we'll harvest when we come back, and then we're going to ask you all to bring from your meeting what is alive for you. So Cameron, I thought you might want to speak a little bit of what you were thinking about saying earlier into the space, before we invite others to share.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Welcome back, everybody. Yeah. Were you thinking about, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay. So I wanted to share just a little bit more about examples of culture that exist, and that provide good containers for humans relating to each other and for expression. The first example that I gathered was my friend. He is from the ranchos in Zacatecas, Mexico. It's a very small town. Everyone knows each other, and they have epic parties, and they have this custom, not a custom, it's just like an accepted code of behavior to like eat dinner with your neighbors every single night. And if you want to do something, there's always people around who want to be with you. And if you like go to fix the plumbing in your neighbor's house, they give you a meal. So it's like, it's a culture of loving and caring for your neighbors and wanting to be friends with them. And then another example I wanted to share, and I'm sure Jody will talk about this again when she's back, but Jody is in China right now, and she was raving about how all of the public parks are always full of people dancing and people doing Tai Chi lessons and just like large groups of people doing something together. And that I think is like a really key point to bring up as well, which is that we live in a culture of very individualist culture, and there are actually so many examples of cultures like in China where people collaborate and participate in things together and occupy public space together, and that exists. Also, I have a few more examples, but I wanted to open up the room to everyone. If anyone felt like they had something really poignant to say, or if someone in their breakout session said something that really spoke to them, I want to open up the room so that you guys can share to us all, because we all want to learn from each other and collaborate and build community together. But I can share. Oh yes, Nita.
Hi. So I wanted to share something about so I'm Pakistani, but I married someone from Morocco, and so we go to Morocco every year. And what I found really interesting about their culture there is everybody you meet who, like, maybe you're just asking directions or something, they will invite you over to their house. And I found that kind of weird at first. So I was like, you don't know me. Why are you inviting me to your house? But everybody, and it comes from like a culture that a long time ago saw a lot of travelers along the Mediterranean. And so I think that those cultural elements kind of still stayed where like anybody they're really willing to of course share a meal and invite you to their house. And so I found the hospitality, like it makes you feel so welcome. It makes you feel like you really belong there, even though, you just got there. So I love that element of the culture, the hospitality and the just willingness to take care of a stranger is something, it's a really nice element of that culture.
Catherine,
Hello.
hi, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. During our breakout session, I, was just sharing, like we were talking about, the capitalist culture and how in the US, I mean, this is just my experience, what I witnessed since the 70s, essentially, the breakdown of the family system. I studied a lot about child abuse, anything that didn't have essentially a dollar sign on it kind of had to be broken up and a dollar sign like placed on it, which essentially just, destroys um, things. And I just tried all my life to get people to just like what was being shared. I mean, create community, build healthy families, um, healthy relationship skills. I mean, I studied this stuff literally all my life just based on what I experienced and, being starving for all of this stuff. And in the US, the culture is just so like be tough. You got to do everything yourself. Oh, you gotta like, develop a thick skin, like just basic compassion, nurturing, caring. I mean, like it just, I'm like devastated, about what's going on in Gaza. I was part of a peace delegation the first time I went to Cairo with Code Pink was a decade ago, and then I did a leg on the flotilla to Gaza in 2018. I went to Istanbul just in April trying to be a part of the emergency flotilla, and I did another leg on the flotilla in July from Spain to France, because I just see the parallels between the child abuse pandemic that I studied and lived essentially for decades, and the genocide of the Palestinians. And I'm just going to say this one last thing and then I'll stop, was that all my life, all people did was excuse the abusers and make and enable abusers and treat the victim, the truth-telling victim, like they were the criminal. And that's Israel Palestine at the macro level. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that observation. That's a really interesting frame on it. I wanted to offer just a quick story. I've been searching for trying to find some sort of culture that I feel that I relate to other than American capitalism. And I began looking at my ancestry, and I have a lot of Welsh, and so I decided and Scottish, and so I decided to that I wanted to learn the Welsh language because through language you can get at different ways of thinking and ways of being that people science shows that when you learn a different language that your personality actually changes when you speak the language, and so I wanted to inhabit that space of speaking a different language other than American English. And um, the Welsh language is really rich in words that describe the natural world. And there are many, many, many words in Welsh that do not have equals in English. And um, I just got glimpses, like glimmers of a different way of being through just this very, very small um, movement into my ancestral language. And I was wondering if anybody here has any experience with speaking an ancestral language or learning an ancestral language and realizing, finding ways to come home to yourself. Elaine, if you want to speak, just
I don't have a hand. You know, it's interesting you say that. The discussion we had is, you know, about culture is that there are so many cultures and there's so much that they have to offer each other. You know, like with languages, with food, with the way we dress, the way we educate, all these different things. And I think when it comes to culture, I think the biggest question that I have in my mind right now is what is stopping us from coming together as a human culture and validating and appreciate each one of our culture. I mean, and I really could resonate to what Catherine said when she says how disappointed she feels. I mean, I was brought up Jewish, so I just feel so disappointed in what happens with Israel. I can't believe how my heart is just broken about that, how that could be happening. That's part of my culture that but how, what is it in the human family? You know, that here, look at here, we had a country that says we have free speech, freedom of press, all these different things. And look what it's turned into. And so for myself, I really believe each and every one of us have to ask ourselves, how does this happen? You know, and we have religions that say, oh, love your neighbor and all. And I say, wait a minute, what is all this bullshit that's flying around when you got all these wars going on? And the wars are all about culture. Oh, they're the Ukrainians, they're the blah, 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 blah. Everybody's. So, I mean, that for me right now is my dilemma, is to try to answer that question. And I think that we have to really look at that hard, really hard. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. And I was in Italy, by the way, and I did not know a word of Italian. I had to learn Italian. So I had a little yellow book. And I'll tell you something, when you start speaking another language, Marie, exactly what you said is like, it changes something in you. It just, I don't know what it is, whether it's the sound of the word or what, but you become a lot different. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing, Elaine. I really like what you said about how, oh my gosh, about needing to like all the wars come from different cultures fighting against each other. And that makes me want to bring up, that just reminds me of, I don't know, I'm sure many people here already know about the Zapatistas, but I've been researching them for a while now. And I read one of their declarations, and one of the core parts of their organizing. So the Zapatistas are an indigenous group in Chiapas, Mexico, and they declared independence in the 90s. And they now like have an autonomous zone. The government, they fought a bloody war, and the government mostly leaves them alone, but they're still fighting and defending their territory to this day. But the Zapatistas are known for their embracing of and desire to create a world for all of the worlds. And this is a big narrative that people are always saying, like about the genocide right now. Like every time a person dies, we're losing an entire universe. And that's why I really appreciate this message from the Zapatistas, because they're trying to create a space where all cultures can exist side by side, and we stop trying to tell each other what to do. And it's more just realizing like, oh, this is my way of being, and you have a completely different way of being, because this world is so big and there's so many ways of being. So I really recommend looking into that. Also, if anyone is more interested in language, there's a great book called A Native Tongue by Suzette Elgin. I'll drop it in the chat, but it's a feminist sci-fi novel all about how language can change your brain. I really enjoyed it, so I'll share that with you guys. And Nita, I keep seeing that your hand is popping up. Do you want to say something in the last couple minutes?
I keep going back and forth. I'm sorry. I keep going back and forth. I'm trying to maybe perfect an idea here that I don't totally have clarity on. But what you said, Elaine, really resonated with me, that it almost feels like we need to like recreate a culture here, that that human culture where we can learn from one another. And maybe that starts with openness and understanding, because I find like we have less and less and less of that. Even just that act of being open and understanding to learn about other cultures, even if they do things that seem really different from you, being open-minded enough to see the worth and value in that, if there is any. And then, with hopes that we can create a human culture where, because I think the will of the people is that. I know it's not the will of the people who are in charge, but, every person I meet, it seems like they also are looking for something different. They're tired of money above all things. And there's a lot of people, I think, looking for that. And so I hope we don't ever feel isolated. This group has been so helpful. It has its own little culture, so to speak. So, but yeah, those are my thoughts.
I'm so sorry, Sandy. I don't think we have enough time for your comment, but we would love for you to share in a future meeting.
I think we can do, I'll stop the recording, but Sandy,
Okay.
why don't you, and people can stay or leave if they need to leave, but why don't you share as I stop the recording?
Oh,
I
Go.
before everyone leaves, I just want to say I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and I'll be working on this culture piece moving forward. So I would love your guys' feedback and any ideas about what it is that you need to think about culture and tools that you need to re-engage into your own culture. If you guys have any ideas about that, please reach out to me. And Sandy, I would love to hear from you right now.